And so that's amazing. So how is it that Sarah is able to trust the promise? That's really important because there's a real contrast between Sarah's reality and what God says is reality. So why was it that Sarah trusted God's promise? She considered him faithful who made the promise. In the midst of all the bitterness, in the midst of all the difficulties that she's had in life, she still considered him faithful who made that promise. She trusted him over the situation. Because those promises that she's hearing, they sounded so unbelievable, and she struggled with it at times. In fact, I'm so thankful for this passage right here, because if it were not for this passage, you might think that Sarah is just a bitter old person who, thankfully, God let her tag along to Abraham. But here we see that God could change even her heart. Even in a position when we're doubting, know that God can still give us faith.
What does it mean to consider him faithful? Well, it means that we believe that God is loyal, that he will not leave us, that he is committed to us. We believe that God is constant, never changing throughout the ages. We believe that God is steadfast, enduring even through times of difficulty, and that he's true to his word. And so this is what Sarah believed of God, that God was loyal. He was not going to abandon them, that God was constant, forever, ever the same, that he was steadfast no matter the situations and how things were in flux there, that he would always be with them, and that God would be true to his word. That sure is a model for us today. As a result of her faith, think about what happens. As a result of Sarah's faith, this is what happens. As a result of Sarah's faith, and so from Abraham, so old he was good as dead. There was no way that he was still viable to make children, or she. And so because of Sarah's faith, so from Abraham came descendants as numerous as the stars of the sky and countless as the sand on the seashore. That's a quote from Genesis 22:17. Now stop and think about this passage. Because of Sarah's faith came Isaac, came Jacob, came all the 12 tribes of Judah, and through them Jesus. Sarah's faith was used by God to enable the Messiah to come. It's amazing to consider the results of the faith of this woman. And her eyes were focused on God's faithfulness. That is what enabled her to endure this. So does your faith in God move you to action? Does your faith in God's faithfulness move you to action? It's a hard question. I would say sometimes for me, because this is difficult. Because we so often forget the faithfulness of God when we're faced in difficult situations. And as Charlie was mentioning during worship, there's some really difficult situations here. We've got cancer. We've got unexplained medical illnesses. We've got all this stuff going on and health issues and concerns and division of our nation and everything. It's really easy to forget the faithfulness of God when the circumstances look challenging. But to change the question a little bit is, how can it not? How can faith in God's faithfulness not move us to action? That when we look at the character of God, his faithfulness, his love, his promises to us, that spurs us to action if we really believe it. And it's amazing. And all the cares and concerns and worries that are so quick to consume us fade away. It's impossible to believe in God's promises and not be transformed. Impossible to believe in God's promises and not be transformed. And so Sarah is an inspiration for us today because of her focus on God's faithfulness in spite of difficult situations. God is faithful and will fulfill every single promise to us. He is with us, has forgiven us, will never leave us, never forsake us, and those who trust in Jesus will be with him forever in heaven. And that's the greatest thing, period, is just understanding that God loved us so much, he sent Jesus to die for us, and that it's through his sacrifice we have life and forgiveness and hope and peace and our eternal heaven, our eternal home in heaven is secured through that. God is faithful. Let's focus on that.